I'm Vance Bastion here with my co-host S08E30 Collins for this week's Written on the Edge Season 8, Episode 30, last week this morning. It's just Baz and I sharing headlines and culture news that caught our attention during the week of July 2 through 8, plus nominating our wins for the week. How you doing, Baz?
I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing it.
Oh, all right then. Uh, do you want to go first or do you want me to?
You go first.
All right. In the realm of politics, please do your research before falling for the Kennedy legacy. Robert F. Kennedy is against vaccines of all kinds. He believes chemicals in the water turns kids trans because it happened to 10% of frogs given megadoses of atrazine. He thinks AIDS is caused by poppers, and his own family is not behind him or supporting him. In fact, they've gone on record calling his stances tragically wrong and pointing out that he's the outlier of the Kennedy family.
And if you need any further research and backing, Putin loves him. That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know. Two former male staffers, a former reality TV performer turned Florida State Representative Fabian Basabe, have accused him of sexual harassment. Basabe, who is married to a woman but has avoided questions about his orientation, voted for his state's infamous Don't Say Gay law. And yet, a 25-year-old legislative aide said that on December 20th of 2022, while attending Career Day at North Beach Elementary School in Miami, he was slapped on the rump and said, I want all that butt. He also accused Basabe of once slapping him across the face. And if that weren't enough, a 24-year-old unpaid intern from Basabe's office said that on December 15th of the same year, he drove Basabe to a hotel after Basabe had been drinking. During the drive, Basabe allegedly groped the intern, tried to kiss him, and invited him up to the room to have sex. Y'all, these are the people who are promoting values. Just saying. The city of Houston is suing Texas over a new law that prevents cities and counties from passing local ordinances that go further than state law in areas like finance, agriculture, labor, and natural resources. This would also overturn any existing ordinances that violate it, and critics are calling it the Death Star Law, saying it is designed to usurp the power of progressive cities in otherwise red state. Some are worried that it also will threaten local LGBTQ plus rights and ordinances. Keep your eyes on that. The Navajo Nation sponsored a bill in New Mexico to allow their nation to recognize marriages between two people of any genders. Representative Seth Damon said the prohibition against same-sex marriages does not uniformly welcome or support the well-being of all Dine, the Navajo word for the people. The purpose of the legislation I'm sponsoring is to ensure that all Dine are welcome within the four sacred mountains and to recognize all marriages within the Navajo Nation. Bravo. The Washington, D.C. State Board of Education has unanimously approved a new social studies standard for the public and charter schools. Officials say the new standards are written to be anti-racist, promote civic engagement, improve media literacy, and deliberately include underrepresented minority groups like LGBTQ plus people, Black people, and Hispanic people. The update aims to ensure that every child in the city has a chance to see themselves as part of the story of history and not just history as something that happened to other people. Bravo. Poor Washington, D.C., just as a side note, they are like the only city in the world whose government is governed by a federal. Ugh. Anyway, they have it rough, but they're doing the right thing. Keeping up with news in the battle for trans rights and healthcare. Kansas Governor Laura Kelly has directed state agencies to continue to allow transgender citizens to change the gender markers on their birth certificates and driver's licenses in defiance of Republican Attorney General Chris Kobach. Bravo. Louisiana Governor John Bell Edwards has vetoed 3 anti-LGBTQ plus laws passed by the state's Republican-led legislature, including a ban on gender-affirming care for young trans people and a Don't Say Gay education bill. There is rumor that the Republicans in both state houses are going to try to override that veto. So if you're in Louisiana, speak up. It's time. Moving on, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper vetoed a trio of anti-trans bills passed by wide margins in the Republican-controlled state House and Senate. The 3 bills would ban gender-affirming care for minors, prohibit trans athletes in school sports, and limit classroom discussions about gender and sexuality. And yet again, another gridlock state, Republicans hold the majority in both of the state houses. So if you're in North Carolina, speak up. It's time. That's my list of news. What have you got?
Mine's a rather short list. I have One kind of sad news. Gay TikTok influencers Nikki Champa and Pierre Wu have decided to divorce after being married since August of 22. They had been together for over 6 years. They were a gay couple that I kind of followed here and there. There is a 9 year gap in the relationship, and evidently their entire career was built on the brand of their being a couple, and in creating content and trying to just keep promoting this brand, they've both lost their way of who they are. And I think this speaks a lot to a lot of people who try to do. I think it's admirable that they want to do ventures together and do content, but this is not the first coupling that I've seen this happen to. And so I think there comes a point where it becomes pressure to keep producing content. And I think that, especially if you're younger, you're still trying to find your bearings in life. And I think it's hard enough to have a relationship um, without having the added pressure of creating content together all the time. And I think this is a emblematic moment where we need to stop, and those influencers and TikTok creators and all these other people need to stop and take stock as they do something with their partner and think, okay, if we do this as a brand, we cannot lose sight of us in the name of the brand. The relationship has to come first. There's another coupling called Steps of Two Foreigners that I follow on YouTube, and they've had that same similar thing. They're still together, but it's become a very disjointed. Only one person is going forward and making content. The other person is stepping way back and trying to find some more of themselves. I think that this is a very important thing for people to realize, that if you step into this space, and the thing is, there's a long history of power couples in Hollywood who have gone through the same thing. So this is a known phenomena, and I think that people get enamored with the whole numbers thing, but you're losing your humanity in pursuit of getting more and more and more. And I think when you spend so much time in front of the camera, you kind of need that space to just go and to decompress and to be together. And I think that this is a really, really kind of sad situation. There's another gay couple that are models. I've followed them, but I haven't followed them recently. I don't know if they're still together or not. And so it's something that I worry about, especially because queer voices are needed right now. It looks like Nikki Champa, the younger of the two, is going to continue making content going forward. Pierre has not said whether or not he will, but it's just a really sad moment. I think that while I'm not trying to promote the celebrityness of it all, it's sad because it was very clear, at least from the onset, that the 6 years that they had been making content together, in the beginning, they were very much in love with each other. And it just shows how you really need to examine. Don't just look at it and go, oh, yeah, let's do this, and think it's going to be the easiest thing in the world because you guys are in love. That kind of pressure is really something that relationships don't deal with normally. And so really think about it. It's, Vance and I often joke we should have our husbands on, but it's a joke. It's something that we say, because it's just amusing to us, but it's not something we would ever put on our relationships because, for one, my husband's very private, so that would never happen. It's lucky that you get the Waldorf comment coming over my monitor whenever he decides to say something. But, for the most part, we just don't bring that into our relationship. And that's a choice.
Hmm.
Um, And certainly we think that their voices are valuable, and if they want to say something, we would encourage that. But at the same time, our coupling is not the brand. You know, for Vance and I, we want to do this for queer spaces. So it's just something that people should recognize. If you're thinking of doing something like that and you're in a relationship, you need to really make a concerted effort that the relationship will always come first and that the brand can be sacrificed if it starts to go down that road. So I want to bring that up. That's kind of sad. Second thing I want to bring up is I know it's a controversial topic of contention within the NATO alliance, and I know that it took some wrangling to get Biden to agree to it. But the whole object of cluster munitions being given to the Ukrainians, I think was a wise choice. I think it was a needed choice. The Ukrainians have been held back by the West's unwillingness to escalate, quote unquote. But if you really look at what's happening in Russia right now, Russia can barely hold on to this war. I mean, it is really clear that Prigozhin is able to move within Russia, even though he's exiled, and I say that with air quotes, um, and he moves around with impunity. So Putin has no power. I mean, the writing is on the wall. Things are crumbling internally. Their economy is in the shitter, literally. The ruble is continuing to fall. All of the prop ups that they did from the central bank have now started to collapse. Um, Dissent will continue. There is still the ongoing fighting in Belgorod that the news has stopped reporting, but those fighters are still there. This shit is still going on. Russia can barely hold it together at this point. And so I think giving the Ukrainians, who are very principled fighters, and this is something that I think the West needs to take a step back and say, no, we know who Zelensky is. We know who his people are. They also realize that while Russia uses cluster munitions on civilians and civilian targets, the whole reason Ukraine wants them is to demine areas by launching these cluster munitions to blow up all the mines. So that way their forces can move in easier into very tough situations. And Ukraine always has it in their mind that they're fighting on their territory. Therefore, they won't do something nuclear, even if they develop something like that or get their hands on something like that, because they realize it's their land. They're going to need to redevelop it. So they're very conscious of that fact at all times. And so I think when the West gets tied up in this absolute bullshit that is going on with that the whole thing is, you know, we need to trust the Ukrainians in knowing what they're doing. They understand the war that they're fighting. They understand the West's limitations on where that goes. So, you know, this whole thing that's going on in Belgorod, that is a Russian contingent that is going in and doing it. It is, while Zelensky's not stopping it, at the same time, he realizes, hey, that's their game. They've got to deal with their shit. Um, you know, I think that the West needs to really kind of take stock in getting this thing wrapped up, because I think the Ukrainians can do it. I think they really can put Russia, now that Russia's on the ropes, literally on the ropes. They don't have the money to continue doing this. This is where the sanctions are starting to really play a factor. This is why Biden said it's a start way back then, and it will take some time for it to hit. It is now hitting. Things are starting to collapse internally. The internal um, Sloviki oligarchy is having a round table of knives are out, and they're starting to circle each other. This is the beginning of a collapse. If you know your history and you know what happened when the Soviet Union collapsed, we are at that stage now. Things are really starting to move forward. I highly suggest, if people want to keep tabs on it, go to Vlad Vlexer's uh, YouTube channel. I will put a link down below. He is probably one of the best voices on what's happening internally in Russia from a understanding of the culture internally. He's a Brit, but he was born in Russia. And I think he has a really solid feel for how the regime works, and the fact that he's always warned that we won't get to that point until we see a wobble in Putin. Well, Prigozhin's little usurping of power in Rostov-on-Don and moving towards Moscow, that was the wobble. It's starting to happen. So just, I think the West needs to just give it up and give the Ukrainians what they need in order to wrap this up. This is the time. Do it. So I would like to say that I kind of commend Biden for actually taking the step. I think they need to go further. I think they should give more warthogs to the Ukrainians, because that would be the most brilliant aerial support. If they don't want to give them F-16s, get them trained on warthogs, get them in there, because that's what we use to support our ground troops. Give it to them, let them use it to their best advantage. Just carve away. All they've got to do is get through Melitopol down to the Sea of Azov, and they will bisect the whole logistic line. So, we're close. We're really, really close to wrapping this thing up. Give them what they need. So, while my win of the week is President Biden and the DOD for making the right choices, I think they need to go a little further. And this is my call to say, I would prefer my tax dollars go wisely. So if we're going to really be all in on this, give them what they need. Let's wrap this up, because the Ukrainians have suffered enough. And I think that they should find a path. The only way this will go away for good is to get both Ukraine and Georgia into NATO. And because that will put a stop to this kind of bullshit. We need to actually just do the work and get it done one way or another. So that's who won my week. You?
I'll have an honorable mention that came up last minute, and then I'll share my win. My honorable mention, I was just in Duolingo doing my daily lesson, and it was a conversation, and they were asking you questions about what you heard, and I realized that Anna was introducing her girlfriend Laura to her extended family, including her
Oh,
grandparents. And the lesson concluded with Anna's mother saying, "Now I have two daughters." Go Duolingo. Snuck it in there. I didn't even had no expectation of any such content whatsoever, and there it was. My actual win, though, Little Ruse Children Boutique in Chaska, Minnesota. The owner, Marissa Held Nordling, took to TikTok last week to shed light on the haters who were berating her employees due to a scheduled event with a drag queen reading to children. Eventually, the mayor had to chime in, pointing out that no ordinances are being broken, and a CBS affiliate actually did the research and found out there were no ordinances at all against this in Chaska. So the event went forward. The shop expected such a large crowd they actually planned outdoor events for people who couldn't get inside, and at the event, protesters showed up. Conservative Christians, Proud Boys, but the owner commented to reporters that their numbers were so very small, and for every handful of negative comments, we got dozens and dozens of outpouring their love here. And so when she was asked if she would do it again, she said there's already another one in the works. Bravo, Little Ruse. That's my win of the week.
all right, kids.
Got anything else you want to share?
No, just be kind to one another. And if you're in a relationship
Please be
and you're
kind.
trying to do this brand thing, definitely be kind to one another, because it's a thing that people need to be aware of. Be wary of celebrity for celebrity's sake. That's my advice.
Nice. All right, Written on the Edge is produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our disclaimers, links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.rotepodcast.com. If you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Follow us on YouTube and tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Bye, bye, bye.
I don't know that we need theme music. We have you.
When the leg kicks come in, it's going to be a problem.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.